welcome to Simply Local. I'm Pam Newton, your local family and consumer science agent here in Cabarrus County at Cooperative Extension. And today we're coming from the Extension Teaching Kitchen.
And I'm David Goforth, Extension Agent here in Cabarrus County. And Pam, I brought a dish to work one day and you really loved it and you wanted me to show people how to do it.
Well, David, don't take this the wrong way, okay? But sometimes you have a tendency to throw deer in and questionable things in, and it's just questionable. This is delicious. Thank you for bringing this butternut squash.
All right. Well, actually I'm going to talk about dish puddings, dessert puddings, and we will be using a butternut squash today, but a lot of other puddings are made in this area. Name one. This is a test. Guess what I'm
vanilla
thinking.
pudding.
Vanilla pudding.
Grape Paul pudding.
Grape Paul pudding is probably one of the lesser known puddings, actually.
Persimmon pudding.
Persimmon pudding is very well known. So you got persimmon pudding, and that recipe has been around a couple hundred years, really. In fact, before they used dishes, they would put it into a cloth and actually, put butter and flour on the cloth so it wouldn't go through the cloth, put it in the cloth and put it in there, either steam it or boil it, and they could cook it in the same pot they was cooking supper with. And so that was sort of the precursor, and they made these persimmon puddings, and they made grape Paul puddings here early. But you go on back into England, and before we had eggs, they would use other things to thicken it with. They would use fats and blood. And,
David.
Yes?
Go ahead.
And you get on back in time, and instead of putting it in a cloth, they would actually put it into animal membranes. And so we go back far enough, and the historical antecedent for this pudding we have today is a Scottish dish. Well, it's an English and Scottish dish, but it's more associated with Scotland. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm with you so far.
What's the name of it?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. What is the name of it?
I'm talking about haggis.
Haggis. No, I don't know haggis.
Haggis is when they pudding they made in a sheep's stomach, actually using fat and sheep's innards and things like that.
David,
this is the culinary precedent for the puddings we're talking about today.
You kind of got me off track with some of the things you've been talking about.
This is a lot better. I don't know. I've never tried haggis, but this is a lot better. This is a little unusual. These seeds. Actually, I planted this squash last summer. And I've been storing it all winter. They will store, this is winter squash, butternut squash.
That's the great thing about butternut squash, isn't it? That you can keep it.
It's starting to sprout there, so that means
it's time to eat it.
Enzymes have broken down. It's time to eat. That's a good plan, yeah.
It's time to eat it.
Okay, what we'll do here, and I prefer to use a grapefruit spoon for this, but I couldn't lay my hands on one, so I'm just going to use a knife to scrape this out. And get, you could actually toast these seeds lightly and eat them. I don't
almost like pumpkin seeds.
Yeah, it would be identical to pumpkin seeds. Very quick toasting, but they got a lot of hull to them when you get right down to it. You could feed them to birds, and you could just throw them away. All right, what I want to do is put that into a casserole dish here, and we're just going to microwave this to get it soft. So, there you go. If you put that in the microwave, and we'll start mixing this stuff together here.
All right, here's your microwave.
All right, and when we start this pudding, the other pudding I didn't mention, by the way, let me go ahead and back up and mention this, is the sweet potato pudding.
The sweet potato pudding, that's safe. I love sweet potato pudding. Well,
the reason we use sweet potato pudding is when you first dig a sweet potato and it's not cured, it won't bake, and you can't make a regular sweet potato pie. And at that time, you can use a sweet potato pudding, and we can get you the recipe for that. Now, I'm going to mix the sugar. And actually, for butternut pudding, I just use my persimmon pudding recipe. I mean, I didn't look on the internet or anything. I know how to make a persimmon pudding. Let me try butternut instead.
So this is an experiment.
It was. The first one was an experiment. But I have since looked on the internet, and they do list both this style of butternut pudding and also a butternut bread pudding. But anyway, when I first start here...
Was that about a cup of sugar that you put in there, or how much sugar was that?
I've cut it down a little bit, Pam. The recipe may call for a cup, but we don't have 2 cups of that. So just cutting everything down a little bit. This is about a half a cup, what I got.
Well, this is a dessert, and we talk about desserts or treats, or we're allowed to have small bites, but this is so good you're going to want to eat a lot, but we need to kind of have a little bit of sensibility with it.
I put the butter in here on the sugar because the granular part of the sugar can allow you to mix the butter up. You can also just microwave the butter too. I've done that before. And then you can mix the flour in here. Get this mixed up pretty good.
And this is all-purpose flour?
Yes, this is the self-rising type.
Now it's self-rising.
Self-rising.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
It is self-rising. And that was something I did. My grandmother wrote all these recipes down, and they didn't have self-rising, and she used the baking soda and the salt, and she would actually vary it a little bit recipe to recipe. But I cooked some plain flour one day for biscuits and didn't like it, so I quit buying plain flour. And all I've got is a self-rising flour now. So took that out of the equation. Okay, now normally I'll get let me get some of this pulp in here now. And if this was hot, you might have to hold it with a fork instead. That's a pretty color on that.
That is beautiful. It looks like fall and pumpkins, but we can enjoy through the winter.
Yeah, this is the Waltham butternut, which is what a lot of gardeners will grow. And it's what I grow because I can't afford the more expensive seed. But
I doubt that.
It's real variable, though, Waltham, and you didn't have a real good color on the outside, but got a real good color on the inside. So some vitamin A and minerals and stuff.
Lots of vitamin A.
We got going with this.
Lots of vitamin
A. All right, it should be enough.
David, didn't you treat our volunteers to this recipe at our volunteer luncheon or holiday luncheon? I think you did, didn't you?
I can't remember.
You did. It was because I remembered having some then. It was delicious. So if a person was going to the farmer's market, our local farmer's market, they would find butternut squash from September until April, or
actually, people think about buying it in September.
Yes, it's not.
We plant it very early in the year, and some farmers don't because it is something you can plant later. You can plant this about June, but if you plant it in April, it'll be ready by July. You can actually start getting it by July, but nobody thinks about eating winter squash
in July.
And people don't really start buying it until September, but it's available July through, well, a person, if he still had it, could be selling it right now. I've run out. I can't sell anymore, but still got some for my own use.
So July through February, probably March.
All right, let me get the egg mixed in here. And did you have something to say, Pam?
Well, that's not generally how we break an egg, but
there's a right way to break an egg.
There is a right way to break an egg. Generally, you break it into another little bowl or container, and kind of check and make sure it's a nice fresh egg. But that was a fresh egg, I bet. I know it was.
When you mix it up like this, to do it right, it gets almost like it's so liquid. You think that's not a solid pudding, but that it'll cook. Once it cooks down, this is about the right moisture level you want on persimmon pudding.
And now today, I know you're using low-fat milk or skim milk, I believe.
You can vary it across the board. You'll see there's a variation between the grape-old pudding and the persimmon pudding. And so if you, some people will actually use evaporated, not condensed milk, but evaporated milk.
That would really make it rich.
Yeah, it depends on sort of where you're going. I think the skim milk is doing fine here. And
well, you save some calories and you save some fat content for sure.
Well, I bumped up the butter a little bit to make up for it.
David, did you have to add that?
All right, here we go. Let's a little bit of Pam right here on the casserole dish. Let me we'll dump this right over here with the scraper thing.
A spatula?
As my wife calls it, a spatula. Scraper, spatula, whatever.
Spatula.
Okay. All right. Smells pretty good. And spread this out. You need to have it come up a little bit on the outside because this will rise a little bit when you cook it, not much. This will probably come up about there. That's what I'm looking for. And it takes a pretty good while to cook this. So we're probably looking on this one maybe 25 minutes or so.
At what temperature?
Probably around 325 is normal.
325 on lower oven. 325.
350.
Okay.
Sort of like you would do biscuits or bread.
Oh, it looks lovely.
All right. Well, you could stick that in.
I'll be glad
And
to.
we'll see what we can do with it.
Okay.
In.
That looks gorgeous, David.
There we are.
That looks gorgeous.
So you're waiting for it to get solid, or
Set, kind of set.
my wife says you can stick a fork in it, it'll come out clean.
Yes.
So I stick lots of dirty forks in it when I want them all clean, right?
Oh, no.
No, I don't do that. You stick a toothpick in it,
A
it'll
toothpick
come out
would be
clean.
better.
There
A
we go.
toothpick
All right.
would be better.
So there we have it. Again, a dessert, lots of calories, full of calories, but you wouldn't want to eat a lot of it. Just eat it in small quantities. I think you'll be all right, Pam.
It's delicious. Oh, I love it. Thank you for making butternut squash pudding for us, David.
All right.
A traditional recipe that you've kind of modernized. Thank you. It's fun to eat Simply Local, isn't it?
It is fun to eat, period.
It's fun to eat. Thank you.